will you help me in welcoming to the stage Janna Goodwin?
Hey, do you think that prior to our making this huge commitment to human existence, does somebody offer us any kind of useful advice or counseling or anything? I mean, does a kind voice say to us, listen up, I just want to make sure you understand the circumstances, okay? It's not all going to be ice cream and hot tubs and rock-bottom prices. No, there's sinkholes, snakes, and politicians, and napalm, and mosquitoes, and yeah, flesh-eating viruses, too. So if that gives you pause, I think that now is the time, before you go, not later. Now, ask yourself to be or not to be. Because later you're going to have to focus pretty much on to be, to be, to be, to be, to be, and nothing but to be. The very first time I saw Mark Johnson, we were all seated in a big circle on the floor of Studio 2. And Mark had just introduced himself by saying something kind of incredible. I mean, sure, he said, my name is Mark Johnson. And then he said, and I just sold my successful business and my woodworking company and my home on the waterfront in Seattle, Washington, in order to realize the lifelong dream of coming to New York to become an actor. The last time I ever saw Mark, he was lying with his feet south and his head north, slightly elevated, and along the east side of the room there was a window facing the East River. You couldn't actually see it from there because, you know, there were buildings and stuff in the way, but I just orient myself by the rivers when I'm in the city, and so when I walked into the west door of the room, I thought to myself, most naturally, there's Mark, and then beyond him, the East River, and beyond that, the Atlantic Ocean, and then, of course, Denmark. That's not an obvious sequence of associations. But given my history with Mark, it did have its own emotional logic. You see, Mark was embedded here like a fly in amber forever as the Dane. I knew since day one, sitting on the floor of Studio 2, that here was a man who wanted very, very badly to play Hamlet. And eventually, with my help, he had played Hamlet very, very badly. I can say that now because, well, because he's dead and he doesn't care what I thought of his acting. But also because I don't pretend any impartiality in my judgment of Mark's acting abilities. You see, I confess I could never get past the Ophelia incident. Before that, Mark and I were friends, everything he did was fine. We were fine, he was fine, I was fine. After, not so fine. Even that day, walking into that room. And when I came in, Mark turned his head on the pillow and saw me, delivered a big Johnson smile, that I can't really replicate because I don't have enough teeth. And he said, hey, how are you? It's really nice of you to come. Come on in. Who are you? And I said, it's me, Mark. We went to the conservatory together. We've known each other for years. And he said, oh, good. Come over here and help me then, okay? So I went over to his bed, and at his request, I took the cloth off his forehead, and I poured cool water over it from the pitcher beside the bed, and then I wrung it out into, you know those plastic barf things that they give everybody. And then I folded it back up, and I placed it back on his forehead. And as I stood there with my hand on his skull, I moved it back over that familiar head of hair, and I could feel the warmth of the skin under my touch. And you know what? Even in that very intimate moment, I was unable to break into any sudden love for Mark Johnson. I think that my soul had just been so clenched against him for so long that it refused to expand to accommodate the enormity of grief which was required of me in that moment. pray you now receive them. I never gave you aught, my honored lord, you know right well you did. And with them words of so sweet breath composed, they made the things more rich. Their perfume lost, take these again. For to the something mine, rich gifts wax poor, when givers prove unkind. Here, my lord. I loved you not. Where's your father? May the doors be shut upon him. You amble, you lift, you make no walk, and Mark was off. He's one of these actors who in front of an audience loses all sense of everything. He becomes an improvisational whirlwind of passion. Basically, he advanced, I retreated. He advanced, I retreated, until the entire scene was about Hamlet chasing Ophelia backwards around the stage. I don't know how many of you have ever taken an acting class or if you can relate to this at all, but you know you're being bullied and you can't stop it. The whole class was watching, and at the acting conservatory, you're there primarily to learn how to receive what you're given by your partner and to transform it into something useful, even beautiful if you're lucky. But the only thing that was happening to me was I was transforming it into anger. And at the end of the scene, I kid you not, to a nunnery going quickly to farewell, Mark suddenly lifts me up, shakes me, and hurls me against the wall. He exits. I hit the turf without an ounce of air left in my body. Now, do you know the scene? You know, Ophelia still has, 10 or 12 lines left. And they're the really good kind of lines where there's nobody else on stage to keep interrupting you. So I was unwilling to not say them. Ladies! I finished stage center. Genuine tears, pain and frustration rolling down my cheeks. The class loved it. They're on their feet applauding. My little acting teacher comes forward, Mario, and he says, "Oh dear, your pussy was really in the ring on that one." That's the best acting I've ever seen you do. Well, I couldn't forgive Mark for the violence, see? And then I really couldn't forgive him for that last insult. I don't want the best acting I've ever done to occur when I am merely trying to breathe. But maybe that's when it happens. Mark fell asleep with my hand on his head. And I haven't spent much time in hospital, so I didn't really know what to do with myself. There were no magazines or anything, but I thought 2 minutes isn't really a visit. So I went and I sat in this green alga-hide chair in the corner of the room, and I looked back at Mark. And I noticed that you could see everything under the flimsy sheet. You could see his toes, his shins, his knees, the hairs on his thighs, his penis, his belly, his nipples, and then emerging from the sheet, the fragile clavicle and the iridescent skin of one who was very, very ill. And then I saw something I hadn't noticed before. On the ground beside the bed was a half circle of fluffy white stuff. It looked like feathers. I thought Mark had molted. But then I got down for a closer look, and I realized that what I was seeing were the torn bits of a disposable dive, which my friend had feverishly ripped from his body and flung away. So I went out to the nurse's station, and I came back into the room and got a wastebasket. Do you think that they tell us anything in advance? Do you think forest, you will stumble, you will fall. You will be lifted, you will fall. You will be lifted, you will rise. And one day the sharp smoke of the wheel will pierce your heart, and all this torment of illusion and the sweet sublime will dull to cold. But in the final moments as you're saying goodbye,